one of the most fundamental challenges I think anyone who's trying to do creative, meaningful work faces today.
Right.
And that's, how do you sustain it? How do you keep going when the world just feels increasingly loud and chaotic and just relentlessly distracting?
It's not about how to start something new. It's about how you maintain that momentum.
Exactly. How to keep going, whether you're burned out or you're starting over after some big failure, or, even if you're struggling to manage success, which is its own kind of problem.
And that's the central tension in the source material we're digging into today. It lays out 10 principles for staying creative, not just in the bad times, but in the good times too.
Yeah.
And what I think makes these principles so valuable is just how practical they are. I mean, sure, they reference writers and artists a lot, but the advice itself, it's about building resilience, managing your attention, structuring chaos. That's completely universal.
Totally. It's for entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
teachers.
Students, activists, anyone really who's just trying to, you know, maintain some level of productivity and, frankly, sanity in this world of just constant information overload.
And there's something about the source material that's so relatable. The author, Austin Kleon, he says flat out that he wrote this book because he needed to read it himself.
Right, which tells you everything.
It's not some abstract theory from a guru on a mountaintop.
Mm-hmm.
It's a survival guide. It's a framework that was built from the trenches, from the day-to-day grind of actually doing creative work. It sort of elevates the act of creation from a hobby to, well, an essential act of self-preservation.
It absolutely does. I mean, when chaos feels like the default setting, and the author even notes, he often wakes up feeling like the world got dumber and meaner overnight.
I think we can all relate to that feeling.
Yeah. And when that's the case, the consistent daily process of your work becomes your anchor. It's a mechanism for finding a little bit of peace. Because you know that while you can't control global events or what people think on the internet, you can absolutely control what you spend your time doing.
And how well you do it.
And how well you do it. The opening insight he shares from Willie Nelson just captures that mood perfectly. He says, I think trying to be creative, keeping busy, has a lot to do with keeping you alive. So I think it's time we start building that framework.
All right, let's start with what feels like the central shift in perspective that the source material really demands from you.
Okay.
We're sort of trained to think of a creative life as this lofty, heroic, linear journey, right? You struggle, you have a breakthrough, you achieve success, and then you, ride off into the sunset.
The hero's journey.
Exactly. And the source material just completely rejects that whole narrative. It argues that creativity it's actually a repetitive loop, a spiral.
And that is such a crucial correction, because if you buy into that linear journey myth, you are just setting yourself up for disappointment and burnout.
How so?
Well, you finish a massive project, right? You feel this brief high, and then almost immediately, the world and your own internal drive is asking, what's next?
The void.
The void. The reality is there is no ultimate finish line for a creative person, other than death. You will always, always return to a new starting point, no matter how great your last achievement was.
But isn't there a risk there that framing creativity as this endless repetitive loop, couldn't that feel kind of depressing, especially for people just starting out?
It could, and that's the challenge, but the source material uses that feeling of repetition to actually transform the work, not to depress you. The author says he doesn't feel like a hero on some grand quest. He says he feels more like Sisyphus rolling the boulder up the hill. Oof. Or, maybe a better analogy, Phil Connor's stuck in the time loop in the movie Groundhog Day. The daily work feels repetitive, almost like a punishment sometimes, and the book says, you know what, that's a normal feeling.
And that analogy is so powerful because it leads right to the core question of that movie. When Phil Connors is trapped, he turns to these drunks at a bowling alley and he asks them, what would you do if you were stuck in one place and every day was exactly the same and nothing that you did mattered? And the book argues that your answer to that question, the way you choose to master that one day, to learn something, to improve, to make something beautiful, even if no one sees it, that is your art. That's what gives the repetition all of its meaning.
And prolific artists, regardless of their field, they get this completely. They succeed not through these grand bursts of linear inspiration, but by establishing a daily practice.
A ritual.
A ritual, exactly. It's a
Yeah.
repeatable way of working that just keeps them going. It insulates them from all the external chaos, whether that's the shock of a rejection letter or the distraction of a project failing or even the demands that come with sudden acclaim.
Because they know no matter what happened yesterday,
They're still going to get up tomorrow and do their work.
we have so little control over our lives.
Yeah.
Right. Over the news, the economy, what other people think of our work. The author argues the only thing we truly, truly control is what we spend our days on. So the best thing you can do for your work is to just pretend you're starring in your own personal remake of Groundhog Day. Yesterday's done. Tomorrow might not even come. There's just today.
Right. And what can you accomplish with the time you have right in front of you? It's a really radical focus on the present moment.
And that focus brings us, directly to the need for a routine.
It does, because relying on craft and routine is, let's be honest, way less romantic than believing in some spontaneous artistic genius.
Huh.
But it is an excellent strategy for high output and, for not going completely insane. A daily routine will get you through the bad days, the average days, even the days where you feel totally paralyzed. A strong routine is essential because it tells you what to do next when you have no idea what to do next.
It's also the ultimate time optimizer. Like if you have very limited time, you're juggling a full-time job, family,
Routine, I think.
a set schedule helps you maximize every little chunk of time you can find. But if you have abundant, wide-open time, a routine makes sure you don't just waste it staring at the ceiling.
Yeah. Annie Dillard captured this perfectly. She said, "A schedule defends from chaos and whim. It is a net for catching days."
A net for catching days. I love that. You're literally catching the time that would otherwise just slip away.
But, okay, once we move past the concept of the loop, we have to get into the nuts and bolts of what that routine actually looks like. And there's this great book by Mason Curry called Daily Rituals.
Oh, yeah, another one.
And it cataloged the habits of, 161 creative people when they woke up, when they worked, ate, procrastinated. And what it shows is that there is absolutely no perfect universal routine. It just doesn't exist.
It's really just a chaotic menagerie of human behavior, isn't it?
Yeah.
You've got people like Franz Kafka scribbling away late into the night while his family's asleep.
And then Sylvia Plath, who was super diligent in the morning before her kids woke up.
And then you get into the really eccentric stuff. The chemical aids, the superstitions, it's fantastic. Honoré de Balzac, who famously claimed to drink 50 cups of coffee a day.
50? That can't be true. That feels lethal.
A potentially lethal commitment to caffeine, for sure. And then Goethe apparently preferred to sniff rotten apples.
Wait, what? Rotten apples?
Yep, rotten apples. And John Steinbeck was so locked into his ritual that he felt he needed to sharpen exactly 12 pencils before he could start writing.
12.
Yeah.
That's a wild collection of compromises. It just emphasizes Curry's definition of a routine. It's an idiosyncratic collection of compromises, neuroses, and superstitions.
Right. You can't just borrow your favorite artist's schedule and expect it to work.
No, you have to spend time observing your own rhythms. Are you a morning person? When do you have the most energy? Charles Dickens, for example, apparently hated the afternoon. He called it a mongrel time, neither day nor night.
A mongrel time, I like that. But what's interesting is that despite all the individual quirks, the routine is actually freeing. A strict, self-imposed routine can feel like a prison, but it's a prison of your own making. And that, ironically, sets you free. Well, instead of restricting your freedom, the routine protects your limited time and energy and talent from the constant ups and downs of life. The author even joked that Alcatraz would make the perfect writer's colony.
Right, because of the structure.
He cited the rapper Lil Wayne's prison schedule, which ironically gave him these predictable hours for reading and writing that he just didn't have on the outside.
So the takeaway is that the existence of the routine is way more important than what's actually in the routine. It gives your days a shape.
And one of the simplest, most powerful tools for imposing some immediate order on that internal chaos, the source suggests, is making lists. Lists are basically anxiety suppressors. They help clear out your mental space. The writer Mary Roach said that just writing down those vague, nagging things that need to be done eliminates the psychological weight of it all.
And the book outlines some fantastic variations on this,
Yeah.
right? It's not just the standard to-do list.
Not at all. A lot of artists use to-draw lists. David Shrigley, for example, he prepares a huge list of 50 things to draw a week in advance.
So he never has that moment of staring at the blank page.
Exactly. He eliminates that paralyzing moment of what should I make? The work just sort of makes itself once the prompt is there.
And lists aren't just for tasks. I think it mentions Leonardo da Vinci, right?
Yeah, who reportedly made these comprehensive to-learn lists every morning, just detailing everything he wanted to study that day.
And then you have the more strategic lists, like a someday maybe list, where you just dump ideas you want to pursue in the future but don't have time for right now.
Right. But the most powerful tool for defining your practice might actually be the won't-do list.
I love this one. The list of what you will reject.
Yes. The punk band Wire, for instance, they couldn't agree on what they liked, so in 1977, they defined their entire identity by what they refused to do.
And what was on the list?
No solos, no decoration. When the words run out, it stops. No rocking out, keep it to the point. No Americanisms.
Wow. That sounds restrictive, but I can see how it would be liberating. It just eliminates all that decision fatigue.
Totally. They didn't waste mental energy debating if they should add a guitar solo. The answer was already decided. It's not about limiting your long-term exploration. It's about setting up firm guardrails for the specific project you're working on right now.
It provides immediate, useful definition.
And finally, when you're just stuck, there's a modified pros and cons list. The author suggests what he calls a paper prayer.
Okay.
You just draw a line down the middle of a diary page, and on one side you list things you're thanks for, and on the other, things you need help me with. Lists, in all their forms, they just provide comfort by organizing the chaos in your mind.
But, despite all this structure and the power of lists, we have to acknowledge a hard truth. Not every day is going to go the way you want it to.
Oh, for sure.
All routines and to-do lists are, at the end of the day, aspirational. The musician Jerry Garcia once said, "You go diving for pearls, but sometimes you end up with clams."
I love that. Sometimes you end up with clams.
And some days the most important thing you can do is just make it to the end.
It's a reminder to just go easy on yourself. Nathaniel Hawthorne wrote in his diary after a day with his young son, "We got rid of the day as well as we could. Some days are just like that. You just have to get rid of them."
And that's where self-forgiveness really comes in. When the sun goes down, you have to let it go. Ralph Waldo Emerson's advice here is it's invaluable.
What did he say?
He said, "Finish every day and be done with it. You have done what you could. Tomorrow is a new day. You shall begin it well and serenely."
It's about making a quick list of what you did accomplish, noting what you want to do tomorrow, and then just hitting the pillow with a clear mind.
And this forgiveness needs to extend to the creative work itself,
Yep.
especially the work that feels like a failure in the moment.
Yes. The anecdote about the video game artist Peter Chan is incredibly powerful here.
Tell me about that. So, as a young artist, he was highly self-critical. In these fits of frustration, he would just crumple up his bad drawings and toss them in the trash. His father noticed this habit, and he convinced Peter to at least lay the crumpled drawings flat before putting them in the wastebasket, just so more would fit.
Okay.
Decades later, after his father passed away, Chan found a folder labeled simply Peter. And inside were all those flattened, discarded, bad drawings that his father had secretly plucked from the trash all those years.
Wow. That's incredible.
It reveals this profound truth, right? The parent who is the ultimate non-market participant in your life saw the value in the effort, not just the perfect result.
It tells us that the act of creating, the verb, the drawing, the writing, it's never truly wasted, even if the result seems like garbage at the time.
Exactly. Every day is like a blank page. You can save it, crumple it up, recycle it, but the energy put into it creates a connection, a muscle memory, something foundational. And only time will really tell what that crumpled page was worth.
You just have to maintain that faith that cartoonist Harvey Pekar had.
Yeah.
Every day's a new deal. Keep working, and maybe some will turn up.
So if the first step to keeping going is managing all that internal chaos through routine, the second step is building external walls.
Okay, external walls.
The creative life is inherently paradoxical, right? You need connection for inspiration, but you also need strategic disconnection. You need to retreat, to think, to practice, and to actually bring something worth sharing into the world. The source material calls this playing a little hide and seek.
And this disconnection feels more critical now than ever. Our modern world, with the constant notifications, the 24/7 news, the demand for instant replies, it's almost completely inhospitable to the kind of deep focus that meaningful work requires.
Completely. You have to deliberately retreat from the world long enough to let your thoughts actually form, or you just risk being scattered forever.
And there's a term for this sacred space, isn't there?
There is. It comes from the mythologist Joseph Campbell. He called it the bliss station.
The bliss station.
This is a room, or it could be a certain hour of the day where you are completely separated from the external world. You don't have the headlines, you don't check your social media, you are exempt from obligations. And Campbell was adamant. If you have a sacred place and you use it, something eventually will happen. It's the space for creative incubation.
And it's so important to remember that the bliss station isn't always a physical place.
Right. It can be sacred space, like the author's garage studio, or it can be sacred time. If you don't have the physical space, like if you live in a tiny apartment, you compensate with time. You use the kitchen table after everyone else is asleep.
And vice versa. If your schedule's totally unpredictable, a dedicated space that's always ready for you compensates for the lack of a set routine. One can balance the other.
And the central piece of practical advice here is avoiding the morning news trap.
Ugh, yes. The immediate phone grab.
When you reach for your phone or laptop the second you wake up, you are inviting immediate anxiety, chaos, and other people's agendas right into your most fertile mental state. You just scatter your brain instantly.
So many artists have realized they work best right when they wake up, when their mind is still fresh and kind of in that quiet, dreamlike state.
Right. The director, Francis Ford Coppola, said he loves working in the early morning because, and I quote, "No one's gotten up yet or called me or hurt my feelings."
Huh. That's brilliant.
And
And the simplest way to just shatter that tranquility is by turning on your phone.
this isn't a new concern. Back in 1852, Henry David Thoreau recognized the danger of all this external noise. He complained that reading the weekly newspaper distracted him from his own life and work.
Wow, the weekly newspaper. If he only knew.
Can you imagine? He wrote that to read of things distant and sounding betrays us into slighting these, which are then apparently near and small. He realized his attention was just too valuable to waste on the passing noise from far away.
So the practical advice is simple. Plug your phone in across the room before bed. When you wake up, don't look at it. Instead, head to your bliss station. Stretch, walk, listen to quiet music, or just embrace silence for a bit. It's about retaining that inner balance so you have the strength to do your work. As Thomas Merton said, the greatest need is to clean out the enormous mass of mental and emotional rubbish that clutters our minds.
And this idea of disconnection, it leads directly to the next level, adopting airplane mode as a way of life.
Okay.
The airplane environment itself becomes the ultimate bliss station, doesn't it? You're forced to put your devices into airplane mode and you're confined. Your writing teacher's first rule comes into effect. Apply ass to chair.
It's true. Planes, precisely because they force that disconnected isolation, can be a really productive place to work.
And the source gives this truly remarkable example of an artist who just maximizes this environment. Her name is Nina Kachadurian, and she has this ongoing project called Seat Assignment.
Okay, tell me about this.
Since 2010, she's taken over 200 long, disconnected flights, and she creates art using only her camera phone and whatever materials she can find on the flight.
Like what?
Like she'll use salt packets on magazine photos to create these spooky images, or she'll fold sweaters into gorilla faces, and this is my favorite. She'll take selfies in the airplane bathroom while dressing herself up in toilet paper and seat covers to recreate these Flemish-style portraits.
No way. That's incredible.
The ingenuity is profound because she turns the smartphone, the very machine that is most often used for constant distraction, into a dedicated machine for making art, simply by operating it in isolation.
And no one would even know she's doing it.
Exactly. They just assume she's another bored traveler killing time.
But the point is, why limit this isolation to the air, right? That state of forced disconnection is completely transferable to the ground.
Totally. Pop in some cheap earplugs, switch your phone to airplane mode, and you can transform any boring commute or stretch of captive time into an opportunity to reconnect with yourself and your work.
And we have to recognize what we're losing with all this constant connection. The cartoonist Linda Berry noted that while the phone gives us a lot of conveniences, it takes away 3 key components of creative discovery:
And what are those?
loneliness, uncertainty, and boredom. She argues that those 3 states have always been the places where creative ideas come from, precisely because they are empty voids waiting to be filled. If you eliminate the void, you eliminate the source material. So protecting this sacred time and space, it requires a certain assertiveness. It means mastering the art of the decline.
You have to learn how to say no.
You really do. And thankfully, the creative world has offered up some ingenious strategies for this necessary self-protection.
Like who?
Well, there's the famously guarded architect Le Corbusier. He spent his mornings painting and his afternoons on architecture. So when a journalist knocked on his door during his sacred painting hours asking to speak to Le Corbusier,
What did he do?
he looked the man right in the eye and said, "I'm sorry, he's not in." He just separated his identities to protect the work.
That's bold. I love it.
Then you have the writer Oliver Sacks, who literally tacked a huge no sign right next to his phone to preserve his writing time.
Some artists even institutionalized it, right? Like with stamps or forms.
Exactly. The artist Jasper Johns famously used a custom regret stamp to answer unwanted invitations, and others used pre-made form responses with checkboxes.
Which is totally applicable today. The modern solution is just having a no thanks email template ready to go.
Right. It removes the pressure of having to write a novel-length apology just for choosing your own work.
And this focus on self-preservation is so crucial when you're navigating digital life. Social media is constantly fueling FOMO, the fear of missing out.
Ugh, that nagging, unfounded sense that everyone else is having a much better time than you are.
And the antidote, as the writer Anil Dash explains, is JOMO.
The joy of missing out.
The joy of missing out. It's that serene enjoyment of knowing and celebrating that other people are having fun while you are prioritizing your art, your sanity, and your own life by skipping out. Saying no to the world is often the only way to say yes to your art.
Okay, let's tackle the work ethic itself with this principle. Forget the noun, do the verb. This highlights a really common, debilitating pitfall. So many people aspire to be the noun, the job title, like artist, filmmaker, writer, without actually doing the hard, consistent action of the verb.
The writing, the drawing, the sculpting.
Exactly, and that identity trap is surprisingly strong. If you pick the wrong noun to aspire to, you can end up stuck with the wrong verb.
What do you mean by that?
Well, when people use the word creative as a job title, it kind of implies the work is just being creative. But creativity is never the end goal. It's a tool, a means to something else.
Right. If you only aspire to be a creative, you might spend all your time signaling the status, wearing the designer glasses or Instagramming photos of your studio rather than actually doing the work.
And job titles can be so restrictive. They're a form of self-sabotage almost. If you only see yourself as a painter, what happens when you have a brilliant idea that needs photography or sculpture?
Plus, those titles are usually for other people, for the external world to categorize you. They're not for your own internal sense of purpose.
And the ultimate form of restriction is waiting for someone else to give you that title before you feel like you're allowed to start.
Right. You can't wait for permission.
You have to start making the art now. The ultimate goal is to focus entirely on the process of action. R. Buckminster Fuller summed this up perfectly. He said, "I don't know what I am. I seem to be a verb, an evolutionary process."
Forget the static category. Focus on the dynamic process. And doing the verb consistently should, ideally, feel like play, not like a chore. The next rule is that your real work is play.
We often use the phrase child's play to mean something is easy, but if you actually watch children play, it is anything but easy.
No, they are deeply invested, intensely focused, completely lost in the moment. Maria Montessori famously confirmed this. She said, "Play is the work of the child."
And the critical ingredient that children have is this detachment from the final result, from the noun. The author talks about watching his son, Jules, who was medium agnostic.
What does that mean?
It means he was completely indifferent to whether his finished drawings were immediately erased, or hung on the wall, or even embroidered onto a cushion. All his energy was focused on the act of drawing, the verb.
And the great artists are the ones who are able to retain that sense of pure, focused playfulness throughout their careers. The art only suffers when the artist gets too heavy, too focused on the monument of the result.
So if you've lost that playfulness, how do you get it back?
Well, one trick is practicing for practice's sake. The writer Kurt Vonnegut gave his students this famous piece of homework. Write a poem, and then tear it up and throw it away without showing anyone.
Ooh, that's tough.
It is, but the reward isn't the finished poem. It's the act of practicing an art, which is a way to make your soul grow. You're rewarding the process, not the product.
I like that. What's another trick?
Intentionally trying to make bad art.
Okay, that sounds fun.
It's totally counterintuitive, but it's so liberating. Intentionally try to make the ugliest drawing or the crummiest poem or the most obnoxious song just for the fun of it. Making bad art on purpose is a reset button because it drastically lowers the creative stakes.
Yeah.
You've given yourself permission to fail spectacularly.
The artist Sol Lewitt actually advised the sculptor Eva Hesse to do this, didn't he?
He did. He told her, Try to do some bad work, the worst you can think of. Sometimes forcing yourself to create garbage is the only way to loosen up enough to create something good. You can also just seek out new, unfamiliar tools and fiddle with them. It forces you back into that beginner's mind where mistakes are expected.
And this focus on play, on the verb, it protects us from the next big trap.
Mm-hmm.
The relentless, suffocating culture of monetization,
Mm-hmm.
which is why the source advocates. Make gifts, not products. We are so trained to compliment our loved ones using market terminology. Your friend knits a beautiful scarf, and the first thing you say is,
You could sell this on Etsy.
exactly, not "that's beautiful art," but
Yeah.
you could start a side hustle.
And that is such a profoundly dangerous path, turning the thing that keeps you alive spiritually into the thing that keeps you alive literally. I mean, that's the fastest way to start hating something you used to love.
So the key advice is, when you start making a living from your work, you have to resist the urge to monetize every single bit of your creative practice.
You need to keep a tiny, sacred part of you that remains off limits to the marketplace.
And if you want maximum artistic freedom, the key is keeping your overhead low. A truly free creative life isn't about living within your means. It's about strategically living below your means.
I like that formula. Do what you love plus low overhead equals a good life. But do what you love plus I deserve nice things often equals a time bomb of financial stress and artistic compromise.
And money isn't the only measurement that can corrupt your practice, right?
Not at all. Once you digitize your work and share it online, you subject it to the world of quantitative online metrics. Likes, followers, clicks. It's so easy to become obsessed with those numbers, and they tempt you to decide what to work on next based on the shallow demands of the algorithm.
Ugh, this hits home for anyone putting stuff out there. I know I've been guilty of posting something I poured my soul into and it gets crickets, and then some trivial, low-effort thing goes viral.
The problem is that clicks and streams reward the quick hit and the clickbait, all optimized for the shortest possible attention span. The author noted that there is very little correlation between the work he truly loves to make and the numbers it generates online.
So if you let those metrics dictate your personal practice, your heart just can't take it.
So the advice is to intentionally increase the time between sharing something and getting feedback. Post it, and then force yourself not to check the response for a week. When you ignore the quantitative measurements for a bit, you force yourself back to qualitative ones. Is the work good? Do I like it?
And this brings us back to the gift element. Success on someone else's terms is often called success.
Right. The cultural theorist Lewis Hyde argued that art exists in a gift economy, and where there is no gift, there is no art. So when you feel completely disenchanted or burned out by the market, the quickest way to recover is to step outside the marketplace entirely and just make gifts.
There's nothing as pure as making something specifically for someone special with no hope of payment or validation.
The author talks about making these simple robot collages out of tape and magazines for his son, Owen, during a period of professional self-loathing. And he found that those robots were some of his favorite things he ever made, precisely because the creative intention was just pure love.
So the advice is, try it. Pick somebody special in your life and make something just for them. This act of making gifts puts us back in touch with our own gifts and our original purpose. We forget how many huge best-selling stories started their life as a gift for one person.
Right, like Winnie the Pooh for a millionth son or Pippi Longstocking for Astrid Lindgren's daughter. You just never know when a gift made for a single person will end up becoming a gift for the whole world.